Hello, everybody, and welcome to Traveling the Multiverse. This is the first episode of our show, and we are going to be talking about Earth Zero. Earth Zero is the main Earth of the DC universe, but before we actually get into talking about Earth Zero, allow me to introduce my guest that will be traveling the multiverse with me. He is a good friend of mine. We have competed multiple times against each other in movie trivia, TV trivia, wrestling trivia, and he is the main host behind Full Metal Random, a trivia competition where you can have a trivia match about anything you want. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Malcolm Lay. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Just here to have fun, really.
Yeah, before I give a description of what Earth Zero actually is, as it is written in the Multiversal Guidebook in the Big O comic Multiversity, what is your familiarity with Earth Zero?
I mean, like, it's the one that I kind of am familiar with, to be honest, like, and it's just one of those ones that it's got, like, the usual versions of heroes that I'm just used to, and just is what mostly gets adapted to screen, really.
Yeah, 100%. So, let's get into the description of the Earth. As it is stated in the Multiversal Guidebook, it is Earth Zero, also known as New Earth, is the foundation stone of the multiversal structure. It has survived several attacks, surgeries, and reconstructions on the way to its current form. On Earth Zero, the greatest young superheroes of the age are at the peak and pinnacle of their powers and achievements. So, Malcolm, I know you've spoken about everything that you're familiar with, but when you hear that description, which is basically the New 52 description, what were your immediate thoughts upon hearing that description?
Yeah, so, like, my immediate thoughts on that is that, initially, in hearing about it, you think that you're going to see, all these heroes as, like, young kids sort of growing up to be the heroes, like, you see a 5-year-old Batman, like, as they go old, just like...
Gotcha. So, since this is the main, universe, let's talk about some of your favorite storylines in Earth Zero. So what are some of your favorite storylines that you have read on Earth Zero?
I haven't read a lot of the comics on this, but, like, for me, it's a lot of the ones that have been adapted into screen anyway. Like, even though technically this is a little bit cheating because it spans multiple multiverses, is Crisis on Infinite Earths is probably a big one that I really do enjoy.
100%. Yeah, especially after, and look, there are going to be some people that contend if the Arrowverse adaptation of that story was the best version. I believe that it was a very good adaptation of the comic book storyline, and I think, yeah, you're right, Crisis on Infinite Earths is a great storyline. Now, going into it, I want to talk about some of the main heroes that were shown on the cover, which were sort of like the main 7 New 52 Justice League. So dead center is Wonder Woman, Princess Diana. When you think about Princess Diana, Wonder Woman, what are your, like, immediate thoughts of Wonder Woman?
Yeah, so I mean, for the longest time, I've always thought of Wonder Woman as just basically the female version of Superman, because a lot of her powers is really similar, with the fact that she can fly, like, she's strong. Well, obviously she doesn't have all the powers of Superman, but initially when I first heard about Wonder Woman, I thought, oh yeah, it's just a female of Superman. It's really nothing really mind-blowing until I actually read into the character more as I got older.
So speaking of Superman, Superman is also Clark Kent Kal-El. What are your thoughts on Superman? And if you have any favorite stories of Superman, and even if you have any favorite Wonder Woman stories besides Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah. So, honestly, when it comes to Wonder Woman, I don't really have a lot. Like, she's probably one of the characters I haven't read a lot of comics for. But for Superman, I actually really do like the Red Sun storyline, which somewhat recently I think got a the direct to video one. Once again, I know it's not a Earth Zero storyline,
Yeah.
but it's
Well,
it's just one of the
that Earth will be talked about later
yeah.
in the series. Actually, just open the page and I found it. It was Earth 30. So we'll be talking about that down the line. Okay, what about I'll just do the main Trinity since they're the ones in the forefront. Then we get to Batman, Bruce Wayne, Batman. What are your favorite Earth Zero Batman stories?
I think for me, the one that really springs to mind when it comes to Earth Zero is probably Nightfall. And I believe that's the one where Bane breaks.
Yes, that is that story.
And it's just one that it shows sort of Batman sort of overcoming, sort of getting his back literally broken, and like to just get back up there and into.
Yeah. And if we go to the full story or the full history of Earth Zero, we can start at the beginning because you gave a lot of good points on like each of the characters and some of your favorite stories, but Earth Zero really started with Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like when the comic book ended, that's when Earth Zero was created, and that's when we got the new initiative of restart everything. And so right after Crisis on Infinite Earths debuted, before Flashpoint restarted everything, that's when we got comic book stories like Superman Man of Steel, which was the retelling of Superman's origin story, and Batman Year One and such, and even Wonder Woman with Gods and Mortals retelling her origin story. So yeah, New Earth is very much the Earth where everything restarted. That's when we got the modern take of DC Comics. Now, are there any characters on Earth Zero that you know of that we haven't touched upon yet that you want to mention, sort of like, oh, that character sort of like my favorite character in terms of Earth Zero that we haven't mentioned yet?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like for me, like speaking of the Arrowverse, like the Flash and the Green Arrow, are ones that really spring to mind. Mostly because like I became familiar with the TV shows, but as it's one of those ones like when I was watching them, like they really connected me, and like, made me actually want to sort of reach out and read more of the comics down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. That I will say the Arrowverse very much made me want to read more Flash comics, and that's why I have an entire collection of Flash comics because of that show. And I think that's what a lot of the movies have done as well. Like I know it's not technically Earth Zero, but if you watch the Batman, you very much after that want to read Batman Year One or even Batman Zero Year, both of which are Earth Zero stories. So are there any like, because like you mentioned the Arrowverse, were there any after watching a certain movie of like DC Comics that made you want to go back and read one of the stories from Earth Zero, or even just a comic book from DC Comics in general?
I mean, I'll say this one because it starts off at Earth Zero, but Flashpoint is probably the bigger one that I've always wanted to. I actually want to go back and read at some stage because that sounds like an interesting story to me.
Yeah, yeah. Again, though it restarted the universe, it is very much still an Earth Zero story. Yeah, 100%. Now there was there are a lot of characters in Earth Zero, and like everyone knows about almost all of them at some point, at least once one of those characters got a comic book storyline. But my question to you is there a character that you can think of that maybe never had a comic book storyline, or as of right now that you know of that doesn't have a current comic that you would love to see have a comic run?
I mean, I think the one that sort of being Simone, is I really don't know if this person's had a comic one, but Vibe, also known as Cisco, has been was one of the very interesting characters on the Flash. Is like, and I'm really interested to sort of see if DC would take that character, actually do a whole comic run on Vibe. I don't know if they've ever done him at all, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they did that either. I know Vibe has been in some of the recent, like, again, when TV shows come out and characters start becoming popular via the TV shows, they start wanting to add the characters, because he was in Justice League of America, and I know he was in Justice League Detroit for a time in the 80s. So yeah, Vi would be an interesting character to have. Now, are there any, because there are a lot of potential stories you can have, I know, like, DC Comics, because Earth Zero is the main Earth, like, so many storylines have happened. Is there, like, if you could pitch a storyline for Earth Zero, what story would you want to pitch to DC? Be like, hey, do this storyline.
Yeah, trying to think of one that they haven't actually done before is difficult. But I mean, I don't know if they've ever done something like this, but some kind of storyline in which all the heroes have their minds, their bodies switch into different minds. So like, Flash ends up in Wonder Woman's body, like a Freaky Friday type story. I don't know if they've ever done something like that, but I think something like that could be really interesting, especially seeing how these heroes sort of adapt to having to learn the other one's powers and all that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever. Yeah, but going back to my knowledge, I don't even think that they've done that. All I can think about is that episode of the Justice League Unlimited where they have Flash's mind in Lex Luthor's body and Lex Luthor's mind in Flash's body. So yeah, I don't remember them ever doing something like that. Yeah. Is going back to some of the characters I see on here, like Cyborg, because that was around the time when they were pushing Cyborg to be a part of the Justice League. In your mind, should Cyborg be a part of the Justice League? Because that is an Earth Zero thing.
I mean, it's one of those ones, like, I definitely don't have a problem with it. Like, it's one of those ones, like, I know people are like, oh, they should make Cyborg part of the Justice League because wokeness and all that, all those sort of buzzwords people like using. But yeah, I mean, I think like like any of the Teen Titans really, I think they all should be part of the Justice League at some stage. Like, I know I know they're planning a Cyborg movie at some stage, but for reasons they stopped it. Then the actor started being weird, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff behind what was happening at Warner Brothers and with Ray Fisher that we're not going to get into, because that doesn't deal with Earth Zero. So you mentioned the Freaky Friday storyline, and that's a very interesting concept. I think for me personally, I would love to see a storyline where sort of like what would happen if, and I think it's currently happening right now with Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, but a storyline where the Teen Titans actually become the Justice League, where it's like that is the team, like all of the Teen Titans, like Nightwing is promoted to Justice Leaguer, Donna Troy is promoted. I would love to see a run where the Titans become the Justice League, honestly, because I think the Titans all deserve it at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also, like, speaking of Earth Zero, because they've done so many, like, storylines, so many popular storylines, what is the storyline that they have done that you would love to see get adapted?
Because there's a lot of storylines that I'd like to see made into, like, a animated movie or something like that, but I think a lot of the ones that I have been interested in have been done at this point, like, the only one I'm thinking of, once again, is a technical cheat, but with Crisis on Infinite, because I don't think they've ever done an animated movie based on Crisis, but that'll be interesting to see how they do it. But yeah, other than that, I think all the ones I have heard of have been made.
I know there have been talks about them wanting to adapt that into animation, and so personally for me, I think that would be a great thing to do in animation. Honestly, I've been wanting to see them. This could also be considered a cheat because they did technically adapt Nightfall in Dark Knight Rises, but I would want to see them go full Nightfall with it. Like, sort of like how they went full Batman the Long Halloween-ish recently. Like, two-parter, like, do that Yeah, do that for Batman Nightfall. Call the first part Nightfall, part 2 Night's End, and like that's how you could do the story, honestly, because that's sort of how they did it with the death of Superman and the reign of the Superman. But like, just do Nightfall in that something.
Yeah, and honestly, I think things like Crisis and stuff like that, I think they should all be two-parters as well, to be honest.
I think we've slowly gotten to the point with all these comic book storylines where it's just make all of the adaptations of those storylines two-parters, because that's the
Yeah,
only way to tell those stories correctly. So yeah, now that we're sort of like we're continuing to talk about adaptations and what we'd like to be adapted. Are there, because these are the Earth Zero versions of the characters, which are like the more known versions of the characters, outside of who've already been casted, like Robert Pattinson is playing a version of Batman, Henry Cavill played Superman. Do you have any fantasy castings for some of these characters, these versions of these characters at least? Because I feel like I've always wanted to ask you this, but I've never actually asked you, like, hey, who is your, like, ideal casting for Batman or Superman or these characters?
um, just, I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately, just because I really want to see this extra some more stuff, is, I could see Florence Pugh potentially playing Wonder Woman.
Oh, that would be very intriguing, especially after seeing her kicking a lot of ass in Black Widow. I think she could do a really great job as Wonder Woman. I I'm going to share this one, and like this is one I've had for Batman for a while, and I want to hear your thoughts. I want Richard Armitage to play Batman. And for the people who don't know who that is, he played Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah, no, I knew I recognised the name from somebody, but that definitely is an interesting choice. Like I can definitely see it.
Yeah, I it's just I've seen him like wearing 3-piece suits and just clean, like full unshaven or shaven beard and such, and I'm like, man, he looks like a Bruce Wayne, and he already has a deep voice. He could do Batman. So yeah, like Richard Armitage as Batman. I don't know why I reminded you who he played in the Hobbit trilogy,
Yeah.
since you live in New Zealand and you're a big Tolkien fan anyway. So I didn't need to remind you about anything. Excuse me. So now that we're getting closer to sort of the 20-minute mark, I sort of want to go through where this Earth is located on the big old map. It is located near it is actually located near heaven. And I am not joking. When you look at this map, it is located near heaven. So there's a lot of stuff with Earth 1 that makes it sort of a big tentpole place in the universe and all. And since this is just Earth 0 of the multiverse, what do you eventually hope to see in this? Like, it's not you pitching your own Earth. It's not you pitching your own storyline, but what do you hope to see with Earth Zero moving forward? Like, what do you hope DC Comics does with Earth Zero?
Honestly, I haven't actually thought about that much at all. I mean, I think it's one of those ones that think they just don't really need to do a lot. They just need to sort of keep sort of the characters sort of going, like living their lives. I guess I don't know.
Just keep on living your life and such. And well, I can say one thing right now. I hope that we eventually get to the point with Earth Zero where we can start. I know they're never gonna do this, but I do hope that we do get to the point where we can start phasing out some of these characters. And by phasing out, I mean, let's get to the point where Bruce Wayne can retire, or where Clark Kent can be like, hey, son, since you're Superman now, I'm gonna take a back seat. Like, I don't know, like, I think I've gotten to that point with some of these characters where it's like, I want to see someone else be Batman.
Yeah, because I think that also is probably a good way to go. Because I mean, how many times are they going to have Bruce Wayne come out of retirement realistically?
Yeah, and also like with DC Comics, like a lot of the major storylines that they do, some of them have been done like hundreds of times. Like especially in most recently for Batman, there was a comic, there was a run called The City of Bane, whereas like Bane took over Gotham, and then right after that they had Joker War, whereas Joker takes over Gotham. Like, there's only so many times you can have a Batman villain take over Gotham until it gets to the point where it's, or at least like,
Condiment King takes over Goth.
let's do Condiment King takes over Gotham. He's gonna mayo everything, ketchup and mustard, everything. I think like at least with Bruce Wayne, I think that those stories have sort of run their course, and I think maybe if we had Dick Grayson as Batman during all that, it would add an extra layer, because for Dick it would just have to be, hey, I'm used to this, but I'm not used to being the leader of all of this. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like with Dick Grayson. I think he's on his own with Nightwing. I'd actually like to see someone like Tim Drake or Damian Wayne, someone who's never really actually led anything to my knowledge, actually become Batman.
Interesting. You're not the only person that I've heard say Tim Drake should be the next Batman. Like, there are a lot of people who think Tim Drake should be the next Batman, and I think that would be an interesting thing. And sort of like Wonder Woman have Donna Troy or Nubia take over the mantle. Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing out suggestions of, hey, this is stuff they could do, because maybe the main characters that we've had for a long time need to start retiring. And again, I know they'll never do this, but it's just a suggestion.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, do you have any final thoughts about Earth Zero? Because, again, this is the first episode, so it's going to be a little bit shorter, because also, this is Earth Zero. Everyone knows about this Earth. We don't really need to go into deep descriptions of what this is. So, yeah, do you have any final thoughts on Earth Zero?
Yeah, there's definitely nothing much more that I can think of that I think we need to mention.
Do you have any comic book recommendations for people that exist in Earth Zero? I feel like you're going to say Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I actually wasn't. I was going to say Nightfall, but yeah.
The only reason why I made that joke is because you were mentioning that comic a lot today.
Yeah, as I said, like when it comes to my actual comic knowledge, like I'm only relatively new to comics, and it's just one of those ones that I haven't read a lot of the bigger like storylines that from Earthsea, like the ones I've read are like the big known ones like Crisis and all that, where they technically span different Earths at the same time.
Gotcha. Well, for my comic book recommendations, obviously Batman Year One. Honestly, I could say almost anything Batman, and that would just be cheap, because Batman has a lot of great stories in general. If I had to give a Superman one, because again, I love origin stories, so I'm gonna say Superman Secret Origin. I haven't read a lot of Wonder Woman, and that's a bad thing. That's a big no on me. But also, the Flash run, the New 52 Flash run was a really great run. I recommend that as well. And yeah, I don't really have people would give better suggestions than I would, because I'm just looking at my comic book shelf and I'm like, that's Earth One. But yeah, Malcolm, thank you so much for joining me. Plug your stuff. Let people know where they can find you and what stuff that you do.
You can find me over on Tape View Productions, where I host Rankum every Saturday. At the time of this recording, I'm not sure if this is actually dropping, but we either have or will be doing a ranking on the Halloween franchise, which is actually coming on Sunday this week. And you can find me over on Full Metal, or host Full Metal Random every week. So
Yeah, and also next time when we meet up, when Traveling the Multiverse reappears in your podcast feed, I'm going to be talking about Earth 1. Who is my special guest? I don't know yet. I'm just waiting for the person I reached out to get back to me. But yeah, Earth 1 will be the next episode, and everyone, you can follow me everywhere at MrEliMac. This will be going up on YouTube and on the podcast feed for Traveling the Multiverse. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bells. That way you can be notified whenever a new Traveling the Multiverse goes live. Also, if you're listening to us on podcast, please give us a 5-star review and leave a comment what you liked, what you didn't like, what do I need to improve, because again, this is my first time sort of going a bit solo as a host and having a guest host every single week. So please give me tips or your thoughts. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, we will be continuing to travel the multiverse.